Good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, October 25th, 2023. This is a meeting of the Gloucester School Committee. We are meeting at Gloucester High School Library, 32 Leslie O. Johnson Road. Effective August 16th, 2023. The public is welcome to attend in person. Alternatively, the public may attend through the Zoom link below. Meeting notice will reflect that the meeting is Zoom only. As the recent amendments to the open meeting law allows, the school committee may continue to hold meetings remotely. I'll call this meeting to order and state that the mission for Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be successful, engaged, lifelong learners. We are all here in person. So I will ask that you join me in this.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
First order of business is oral communications. There is anyone here that would like to speak? We do not have anybody physically with us here in the audience. I will read the oral communication guidelines. The public shall have the opportunity at every regular school committee meeting to be heard under oral communications. Oral communication shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to the school committee business to appear before the school committee, state their problem without debate, may refer to proper subcommittee. For items that are on the agenda, members of the public may address the committee with the permission of the chair. Person speaking under oral communication shall be limited to 3 minutes each and shall submit a copy of their prepared communication to the reporting secretary. So I'd love to see if there are any attendees. Raise your hand if you'd like to speak. There is one. It is our old friend Joel Pavazza. Welcome. Not that you're old, but that you.
I can see Superintendent Lemus smiling at the fact he has a mute button on me these days. For the record, Joel Pavazza, 28 Middle Street. I, of course, want to thank you all for your service and for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am following up on an email I sent to the committee about 80 days ago, beginning of August, regarding the district's busing policy. I just want to remind this committee and those listening that this district has deemed walking along any stretch of Essex Avenue toward Concord Street, even the parts that have sidewalks to get to West Parish, as too dangerous for elementary school students, and they provide busing. This district has deemed crossing the Eastern Avenue lights intersection, despite it being a modern four-way intersection under stoplight control that you can bring to an entire halt in all four directions and get across a walk signal. That is too dangerous, according to this district, for elementary school students to cross on their own, and so they are provided busing. However, anybody who lives south and west of East Vets is up to 1.5 miles away, is not provided busing. And obviously, south and west of East Vets, you have the Flanagan's gas station intersection, you have the Talley's Corner intersection, you have the Railroad Ave intersection. You have a lot of congested mixed-use commercial and residential intersections that children are expected to cross as a result of the determination this district has made as what is or is not too dangerous. I drive my kids to school most days. I see a ton of students walking, and on the sunny days, it's kind of nice to see, right? The kids are on their bike, they're smiling, they're walking together, having fun. A lot of times they are accompanied by adults, but many are not. Some are coming fairly close to the school, but many are not. And like I said, on the sunny days, it's all well and good, but on the few rainy days we've had so far, it's been kind of heartbreaking to watch these kids get splashed and basically dodge cars. They're, if you walk to East Vets through the Friend Street area, you have to cross several little streets. They're not high speed streets, but they're high traffic streets, especially the time of day. And now you have this raining situation. I understand umbrellas and raincoats exist, but it's still heartbreaking to watch these, young kids kind of navigate this to get to the school. And then when you get to the school and you see the buses show up and the tumbleweeds blow off the bus and all the empty seats in the bus, it becomes infuriating that these kids had to go splash their way to the school while that bus pulled up with room for all of them, seemingly. I do not have all of the data on that. These are anecdotal observations. And so I once again appreciate that there are a lot of moving pieces to extending bus service to other students, but I'd appreciate if this committee and this district take a good hard look at the student population at East Vets, those who are not being provided a bus, and whether or not the delineation that's been made as to what is or is not safe for a student to walk, a path for a student to walk to school has been correctly delineated, or maybe there need to be a few tweaks to that policy. Thank you again for your time. That was it for me. Have a great night. Have a great meeting. See you at the next one.
Thank you, Joel.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to recognitions. Do you have anything this meeting to recognize?
Have a bunch of them.
Okay. All right,
Okay. I just had one maybe. Just a great job done by staff over these vets at the opening of the school ribbon cutting ceremony. Couldn't have gone any better, and just great to see. Hats off to Principal Fusco and his team.
I can give an update on some of the transportation work we're doing at the next meeting, but there'll be helpful folks. Some of the challenges we're facing, but also some of the adjustments we're trying to make. Just to give an update, that's helpful.
Yes,
On transportation, buses.
yes.
I was gonna ask to refer to the and get a report, just.
Yeah, whatever way the committee wants to do it, but happy to give an update at that point.
referring it to subcommittee and then
Yeah.
reporting it
And
again
we
here.
report it out,
Yeah.
that way we can give you time to gather information on how many people are on the bus and. All that
And,
it entails.
Yeah, and we, talking through on a few things on it, and also at BNF, we can also give an update on some of the work we're doing on electric buses too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so combine.
Yeah,
Happy to do that.
so Gary, remember that next week?
Yes. So we're,
I'll remind you, but I just want you to remind me to remind you.
okay, we're referring to BNF on that?
Yeah.
I do not see any students. You know, they're expecting some at 7, so we'll keep an eye on the joints person, or if any of the students arrive online. Next item of business is the consent agenda. Anybody have any items they would like to remove?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Rotten throat.
Deliberations on education issues.
Great, thank you. Let's get things going here. So, gonna give you an update, superintendent's report, an update on things going on around the schools the last couple of weeks. Had some highlights across most of the schools, I believe, some learning updates, and then also, Ms. Pastro will help with some learning updates, and then we'll do the annual enrollment report. Share this. You have my students report from earlier in the week, but then we always add a few things. So there's always late breaking news. Like we say, as much as we possibly can, everybody matters and everybody belongs in our schools. All families and the school committee would have gotten our new newsletter, which is titled "Everybody Matters, Everybody Belongs." This past week, and we do that on a monthly basis. So, of course, families get information and updates from their schools, but also we like to make sure their families are updated on a few things that are happening across all schools as well. So, first and foremost, we don't do a ribbon cutting for a new school very often, so just wanted to highlight that. It was great ceremony that these veterans put on and hosted. It showed a great combination of what we like to do, which is including students and staff. So students were involved, 5th grade students who sang 2 years ago at the groundbreakings, reprised their "We're Going to Be Friends" song as 5th graders, which was a nice touch thing that they magic touch now. And then the student band kicked off the bus, which is great name for the band, by the way. Played Motley Crue's "Home Sweet Home." And that also featured Mr. Fusco on the bass. But the students were great. And those students, I think most of them were either veterans or East Gloucester graduates. Yeah, if not all of them, which is great. A fair number of VIPs, including Senator Buchtar and Margaret Fronte, spoke, as well as Mary Pichetti, who's the executive director of the MSBA. Clancy spoke, and so did I. But the other piece was just a lot of enthusiasm. All the students were there, all the staff were there, and got a chance to thank the students and especially the staff for all the work they've been putting in to get to the two schools together. There is a kick off the bus on the left. Mr. Favaza also, who just was with us, also helped out and then we began with a slideshow that showed so many things, two schools separately, two schools coming together, images from the new school year, images from the school building being built, time lapse video. So it was a great happy event where all the folks in this room learned fins up, which is what the Blue Sharks do to quiet down. It's a signal to quiet down, which was used appropriately a lot that day, and sometimes inappropriately by some of the adults. Also some of the VIPs. But anyway, it was used. It's a really great symbol that Blue Sharks and these veterans use. So
That stage looks awesome. Really nice.
yeah. It's a great picture there of the stage. The fifth graders singing "We Are Going to Be Friends." On the left, really nice touch organized by Mr. Fusco was to have 4 staff members. So 2 teachers and 2 paraprofessionals representing the more experienced staff and the newer staff. They did the cutting. So just and you see that on the left, which is a really nice touch. We are already beginning transition activities into from O'Malley to GHS, and then in a little bit we'll start working on them from elementary to O'Malley. Here you see our annual pilgrimage of some great high school leaders, student leaders going to O'Malley and talking about the work what they do at the high school, the academics, the clubs, the teams, all the different activities, and learning that happens. And so I had a great representation, as we always do, from kids who are in the National Honor Society, kids who are ROTC, kids involved in band and music and the arts, athletics as well. And they did a really nice job of talking about what it's like to be in high school, and really focusing on finding your place, getting support when you need it, and really being excited about the huge range of opportunities and academic opportunities we have at the high school. On the left, you see ROTC performing for the students, and then on the right, you see Michael Toppin share some advice for the 8th graders. And just to thank the high schoolers who helped out, I'll list them: Bert McNiff, Alexis Thomas, Andrew Fahim, Colby Rochford, Yisberlin Castillo Consoro, Mei Ling Erkalani, Yashvi Patel, Michael Toppin, Chase Sargent, Kelsey Frontiero, Jessica Cote, Shirsi Cook, Emma Alves, Saoirse Cook, Emma Alves, Madison Guernsey, Brendan Canoe, and Victoria Mickles. So thanks to all of them for their great leadership and support of the other students. Cops and kids are great. We have great support on so many levels from our city partners, and especially our public safety officers, whether it's the school resource officers or the Cops and Kids program. And this fall, Cops and Kids are visiting all of our elementary schools. They've gone to Plum Cove already, and we'll visit. East Veterans, and then we'll visit Beeman and West Parish in November. Always bring along ACE, but you can see School Resource Officer Peter Sutera and Brendan Ciabarini, and then Community Impact Officers Joe Parody and Officer Kelly Gossam. They are visiting Plum Cove. One of the things they did was hand out the Gloucester Police Department trading cards apparently a thing, quite a thing. I think they have 40 trading cards now for the officers. And if you collect them all, or the students are eligible to earn a ride to school in a police cruiser.
Wow.
You want to start collecting?
Kind of cool and kind of worrisome. At the same time. Adults are not eligible, Mr. Fritz. And even Ace, our community impact comfort dog has a trading card, so just some really great support. And there you can see the officers playing on the swings. Don't see that every day. And on the left, Ace is they're at Ace's trading card there. So we reach out for that. So just great support from our officers as always. There's Officer Chip Reedy, our newest SRO on the left, and of course Officer Pete Terra on the right. It is that time of year, so we have Beeman has their trunk or treat on October 20th. As folks arrive in cars are decorated. You see on the left some of the decorations. Kids are dressed up in costume, and there's a fair bit of candy exchanging and going around. So there's Beeman, a couple photos from Beeman's trunk or treat. East Veterans had their trunk or treat as well. Not surprisingly, for the Fusco. On the right, I think it's on the right.
That you owns that.
Yeah, what's on the right? Is it? Those aren't. It's not Tin Man. Is that? Sure. Anyway, so a couple of students dressed up, which is great. Some more students dressed up, also different costumes. Just awesome. And then this Friday, Plum Cove, West Parish are having a trunk or treat. So great stuff. We continue our coffee hour for English language learner families. So just started them this past week. They continue to be well attended. Translation services are always provided. But this is another way for us to reach out and connect with and learn from, and also help EL families learn about our schools and feel connected and make sure they know that they belong and are an important part of our schools. So family members learned about our English learner programs. They were able to meet other English learner families. We talked to them about the importance of attending school every day. Everybody matters. Everybody belongs. And then also heard more about the LPAC, which is the English Learner Parent Advisory Council. We are trying to get started, sort of in a very beginning stage, and also volunteer opportunities in the schools. So you see from Beeman on the left, and East Veterans on the right, you see a combination of staff and administrators, school leaders, and also some of our EL families. And we have translation services available at our coffee hours, like we always do. And you'll see when we go over the enrollment report that for the first time ever, we're at over 10% in terms of English learner students in our school, which is great. Really great news, and an important part of our school community. I'm going to hand these off to Ms. Pasquale. She's doing the bulk of the work on these areas. She can give me an update on some of our updates focused on learning and teaching.
So November 7th is coming up. It's the full day professional development day. For some reason on my first year out alone, I decided to go big or go home. So hopefully I won't go home. But we've done in the past the rotating the course catalog for pre-K through 8. We are extending it all the way through the high school. So pre-K through 12 will all be together right here at Gloucester High School on November 7th. We have many options, as you could imagine, at trying to find professional development that meets the needs of preschool staff member all the way up to a high school teacher. Means we have to have a lot of offerings. So the day will start out with one session with Larry Lamb. He's from Think Kids, and he will be talking to us about collaborative problem solving. And really along the lines of Lynn Lyons of last year, where she talked about anxiety, and rather than to give accommodations for the anxiety, to build the systems or the support and the skills that are missing for students. This is along the same lines, except for with behavior. So when students are acting out, it's a form of communication and they're telling us something. So how can we build skills for our students so they don't have to act out? And it's an initiative that we will continue throughout the year. This is the guest speaker. We'll have a speaker in the spring for parents and from Think Think Kids as well. Dr. Stuart Avalon will be coming in March to speak to parents. And then we have a coaching series going on for most of our APs with along the same topic of collaborative problem solving. Some other interesting and fun topics will be on the course catalog. We have a section on AI, which is a hot topic this year. We have many offerings for special educators because we're at the high school, and a nice way to promote our CTE program. There is a session on front disc brake pad and rotor replacement that staff can go in and actually change the discs. Pretty interesting. We have we talked about data before, extending Star 360 out to the high school. Kate Robertson, our curriculum coordinator at the middle school, is going to be working with high school staff to help them dive deeper into that tool and really get into individual student reports and use that for instruction. We have a CPR course for for staff. A lot of PE teachers are taking that, but some other teachers are taking it as well. We have several groups doing curriculum work to dive into like the math pilot at O'Malley, or diving additional training for Amplify ELA at O'Malley. We have lots of wisdom offerings. We have a session for Spanish for teachers. KPM Museum is coming to teach our preschool teachers on how to work with young students to look at art, local art, and famous pieces of art, and how to appreciate that. And then, so there's 4 sessions. Everyone goes to the Larry Lamb. They have 3 more sections to select. So many staff are leading. So this day couldn't happen with staff stepping up to lead sessions. They're sharing their expertise, which is always fun and rewarding for people receiving the professional development, but also giving it. And they are also allowed to take 1 personal fulfillment or self-care. So we're connecting with the YMCA is offering some Pilates courses. Treetop Yoga is offering some yoga courses. Art Haven is coming in. So we have some other choices that people can choose one of the selections for that.
And the prepare your breaks one is one of those self-care, take care,
Unless you're you're trying to promote CBT. You could argue that one way. But yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the AI?
It's just to get it's an overview of it. Samantha Texera from high school is offering us a session on that, and just kind of diving into it, what it means, how does it impact instruction, how can we use it appropriately, and if and how it has a place.
Is one of my questions if I may, at a meeting, not tonight, was gonna be, where in our curriculum do we use AI? Are we teaching the students AI, because it's that new term, that new buzzword.
Very new.
You hear that it can be really good, you hear it can be really bad.
Yep.
You hear schools are diving into it and using it in a way to benefit students, and I'm just curious at a time down the road that we can get some sort of report like that back to us.
Yeah.
Once we have it figured out.
Yep, I wouldn't say we're diving into it. I wouldn't say we're staying away from it. We're cautiously kind of looking into it and learning about it.
Okay.
And Samantha's one of the leaders in that. So yeah,
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay, so other initiatives curriculum wise, we had talked about the high quality instructional materials grant that we have, and we have a partnership with Rivet Consulting, and we have a consultant that comes up a couple times during the year. On this week, on Monday and Tuesday, it was just yesterday, feels like a week ago. So she was up for 2 days, and she worked with she started her day on Monday with breakfast with students from East Veterans and asked them about wit and wisdom and how they liked it and what they talked about. And one of the engagement strategies they talked about, they use in wit and wisdom is a Socratic seminar. And I just want to read a quote when they asked, how do you feel about Socratic seminars? This is a third grader. We get to talk about things and not have to type them. We think about a subject, ask questions, and on to other answers. Think new questions, determine opinions, and we vote on them. We use our words to get ourselves in and out of situations. And then they stumbled over what they were trying to say, what they were doing, and someone fed them the word. We debate. So it's a third grader. Now I'm so excited that they get to use their words and talk on subjects and give their opinions and formulate ideas. So I thought that was nice to hear. That's how the visit started on Monday. She then joined a principal meeting. We talked about how principals can support wit and wisdom and how we can support our teachers and really know the curriculum to know how to coach and improve instruction. And then we met with some literacy leaders in the middle of the day, and at the end of the day, we worked on some planning instruction and some reporting we have to do for DESI. But on Tuesday, we had additional support, and we had trainers come from Wit and Wisdom to walk through elementary classrooms with principals, and we did some guided learning walks. Because principals have learned a lot about Wit and Wisdom, and they've seen it in action, but to have a trainer go in and explain what's happening and why within a lesson, what might be taking too long and how we can invest in picking up pace, those kind of things. So it was very helpful. We will be debriefing tomorrow with what all the principals have seen. So all 4 schools had that happen yesterday. So that is continuing.
Bill has a question.
If I may, what's the feedback, on wit and wisdom from the principal's standpoint?
So far, it's very good. They're still learning about it. So principals have a lot on their plate, right? And to dive into a program as dense as Wit and Wisdom is a big deal. So that's why we're providing professional development support for them as well. So they know what engagement strategies they're looking for, how much time these strategies should be taking, and what kind of engagement they should see, the different parts of the lesson. When you go into a classroom, the look for there should be a word wall or a wonder wheel or different things to know what they are and what the purpose is. So that's the training that's happening now. And they've had some training, but this is specific for administrators. To go along with all the other training that we're having for staff. We will do the guided learning walks again in March with trainers again when they have it. So between now and then they'll practice them on their own, and then we'll have another supported walk with trainers in March.
And a follow-up, having a brain cramp, but there's another program that is being introduced in the middle school.
Amplify ELA, yes.
That's it. And is there
So we are
Just
doing lots of training there as well. So one of the trainings on November 7th is for the teachers. Right now, they're in the first year of implementation. We're really diving deep into supporting the teachers through that. Kate Robertson, who is the curriculum coordinator, attends all of those trainings. So she's very well versed in the program. And she collaborates with Mike Titus and myself often. So he's keeping up to speed on all of that.
Good. Thank you.
And that's for all grade levels at O'Malley?
For Amplify ELA, yes, 6-3. Okay. And then the final.
And even the superintendent was able to participate in the walkthroughs here, even class and so.
First grade.
Third grade, Alyssa
Shepherd,
her class, and also was part of the introduction, talking about what we're expecting to see, also the success that are happening at even nobody sharing those, and also literacy coach there, Ginny, and then and just also some of the challenge too, and also differences, learning between K and 2 and 3 to 5, with them is just, they're different. You have different goals in terms of literacy, K to 2 versus 3 to 5. It has wit and wisdom play out, how does it meet both of those needs? So the folks are working really hard on it, and they can wit and wisdom, the wit and wisdom staffers continue to be very, very high on our approach to rolling it out. And really think it's very wise, very strategic. And then I think the example of getting the principals more knowledgeable about it, because ultimately if they're responsible for implementing with fidelity, from support from folks like Kate Robinson or Amy, but they really need to know what they're looking for. So this is another level of that support.
And one of the neat things for me, because I went to East Vets and West Parish, and went to Beeman, and then somebody else went to Plum. But in the morning to see kindergartners using an engagement strategy of think, pair, share, and how they work it out. And it is October in kindergarten, so it was good, but the kids are a little wiggly and a little moving. And then we went to a first grade classroom and they did think, fair, share, and I was like, well, that was a little cleaner. And it wasn't the teaching, it was to see that the students had that experience last year and were able to use the engagement strategy faster and more smoothly in first grade. And then also go in first grade, we saw them using story stones, which is another engagement strategy, which was good and a little wonky because it was first grade. And then we went to second grade classroom and it was used seamlessly. So to see the same engagement strategies pulled through the grade levels and build on each other, just with more complex text and more knowledge, it was really neat to see.
So they had a better grasp of it.
Because they're a little older, they had experience with it, so it was nice to see.
Great.
And the last thing for professional development I'm gonna share today is Amy Donnelly is having an open lab session for science teachers for the middle school, but also elementary. Here's a picture of, this is some middle school teachers working on DNA strands, and they are practicing the lab that they will then do in the classroom with their students. But they work with, they go through the entire lab with Amy so that they know all the steps, they kind of, have the pitfalls and those kind of things together and support each other. And then they'll go back into the science classroom and teach it to the students. An interesting part that was not shown in these pictures is while all this was happening, a fifth grade teacher happened to show up. And while I was there and smoothly just went over to a different table and started prepping a chemistry lab that she's going to do in her classroom, but she had already been there the Wednesday before, and it's just time for them to go through the whole process of the lab with having the safety net and the support, Amy Donnelly being the coordinator to answer questions and help them, and both were happening at the same time, and it's really was well done.
Exciting.
All right, any questions? We can transition to the enrollment report. Folks are ready to make a hard right turn.
I think you're gonna go big.
I hope so. Thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Amy. So we'll give an enrollment update. So in your packet on Friday, here a earlier version of this, we've added a few slides just to sort of pull out some details and give some highlights. So to start here, just a few headlines. Total enrollment has increased by almost 60 students this year since last year, which is great. A lot more kids come to our schools. Pre-school enrollment has increased to 114, and that's pretty close to the all-time high, 123, and significantly more number of students since the last couple of years. K-5 enrollment has increased by 39 students since last year, and elementary school, or K-5 enrollment is at its highest since 2016-17. There was one anomaly in terms of I should say kindergarten has increased by 39 students, not K-5. Kindergarten has increased. And kindergarten is at its highest non-COVID year enrollment. You remember the second year of COVID, which was 21, 22, I think it was, families had held back their kids entering into kindergarten. So next year, or 2020, 21 was larger. But I'll show you on the table in a moment, but current kindergarten enrollment is the highest since 2016, except for that one normal year. Male enrollment is at 626, and that's been quite consistent over the last 4 years. GHS has the largest senior class in 2018-19. And GHS enrollment has remained steady since 2016-17. It sort of fluctuates, like all schools fluctuate some year to year, and GHS is hovering around 815 year to year, plus or minus 15 students. So that swing of 30 students in high school that size is sort of to be expected. But really maintaining steady. We'll show you in a little bit, or I'll show you just sort of some 10-year changes and 5-year changes. But in the recent past, GHS is holding quite steady. And then I already mentioned, we have a significant growth in English and multilingual learners continues. And this year we're at the first, our largest year-over-year increase ever in the number of students. And we're now at 10.3% of our students are English learners, which is great. It's great to have kids who are multilingual. I wish 90% of our kids were multilingual, but that's not really how American society works. But they're a real asset to our community, both their students and their families. It's a really, really welcome. Glad to see that we've got more multilingual learners. So just a few detailed numbers and details. So this year's enrollment as of October 1st. And just as a reminder, we actually report enrollment 3 times a year to the Department of Education, but we always report October 1. Those are the official stats, and those are the ones that are used for state financial budgeting, state grant donation, that sort of stuff. So these are the ones sort of the enrollment of record. So you just see there's 2,864 students this year. They're on lower right versus 2,805 students a year ago. You see by grades, we have 230 students at kindergarten, where we had 191 last year. And then just see by grade and also by school there. Folks should stop me if they want to point something out.
SP, Ben, what's SP?
Special populations.
Okay.
Yeah, those are usually our students who are 18 to 22.
Okay,
Often in our transition class.
Yep. Thank you.
I just want to point out to anyone that's listening, which is right now only one attendee,
Sure.
that
Almost.
it's been a campaign statement recently and social media comments about mass bailouts out of Gloucester Public Schools. So I'm just really glad to see these numbers
Yeah.
that show that such comments like that are
Yeah. And I will point that out.
Literally.
Yeah, I'll really highlight some of that data that shows that's a myth.
yeah.
And I think it's okay, just to kind of dovetail to what you said, to make this public, put it out there. That, hey,
Yeah, absolutely, because that's being made out that lots of schools are so bad and people have to come fix us and students should go other places, but yet we get the actual data that is actual truth.
Yeah.
And it tells a different story. I
Maybe
mean, granted, enrollment's down in every school district,
Yeah.
everywhere. But there's no school mass bailout out of the Gloucester public school system, which is really good to see.
Yeah. No, I think
This data.
yeah, I mean, if you go back 20 years, the whole city has changed,
Right.
And the city's always, the enrollment in school is always gonna be indicative of the larger city dynamics. So that's any city or any town, right? But what you see here, I mean, that's a flat line, basically, the last, 9-10 years, you're within 100 students there, in terms of highs and lows. And you can see just recently we're the highest we have been since 2019, right? Which is great. And that, so that's one thing, and I think that's exactly the headline is that, we are steady. And then so this is just this year's grade level, because I showed you this data a second ago, it's just seeing the bar graph, and of course, things fluctuate. We'll talk a little bit more about high school enrollment in a little bit. But it's nice to see that, especially kindergarten, the highest it's been, for a number of years, which is great. And 230 is really, I actually thought during the summer, we were gonna be about 205, the way our registration was going. We're getting a lot of more late registration than typical, and that's a good thing. So here's our 5 and 10-year enrollment history. So this sort of speaks to just what you're talking about. That total enrollment has stabilized over the last 5 years. And you see that by looking at the lower right-hand corner, which is green. We've had a change of 17 total students, from, if you compare us to where we were in 2019, 5 years ago. And K-5 totals is up by 9. Those small changes aren't significant. It's really showing that it's very stable. And you can see that across, if you go year to year, basically. Yes, if we go back 10 years, you see a larger change. If you compare FY 2014, which was the last time we had about 3,000 students. And that's a change of 214 total students across the district. And that's, and so that, but we see that, some of the largest changes actually would have happened before FY 2014 in terms of declines. But since FY 2015, pretty flat, and just a small, really the same since 2019. We're 20 students basically.
I just want to
Yeah.
comment on the last 10 years at Gloucester High, you see 127, which is one of the larger numbers.
Yeah.
But we have to keep in mind that Essex Aggie and Essex Tech combined and made a bigger school, and we have a lot more high school students going to that school than there were 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
that's probably
And you see, you know, I
Proportion
I
of
may
the-
look at this and you might know this, Melissa, but you see I think 2014, and that was 935, was a high enrollment, or that was sort of like the last of the very, above 900. But you also see from 2016 to 2017, 865 to 818. And since then, we've been stable at, you know, this is the 815 plus or minus. I'm wondering if I think it might have expanded in that year. It's
So
possible.
I think they
don't know for sure.
opened in that year, but they had to expand gradually over 3 years.
Yeah,
So, by grade.
right.
So they didn't just get as big as they are year one. It
Right,
took
right.
3 years to grow up the
Yep,
pool,
yep.
and even now it's bigger. They found more space. Continued to grow 3 years after that first 3 years, I need to say.
What I noticed is something definitely shifted in 2016 and 2017. We've been at the 2017 level more or less since then.
Yeah.
You know, but there was a defined dip there.
Yep, my guess is that's what it was.
And these aren't necessarily, just because the number goes down doesn't mean people are leaving the school. It's
No. it's what the difference-
demographics, it's all kinds of variables that go into that. So,
We're gonna look at it in a moment at sort of where changes happen.
Yeah.
And it leads into, you know, some further questions, honestly. This is just longitudinal data by grade over all these years we're talking about. But let me dig into it a little bit more deeply. I'm looking at now cohort changes. So this is, you know, when you go from grade 1 to grade 2. So when you go light green to dark green, you're thinking about going diagonally. And what we're doing here is looking at, you know, essentially the same kids. What happened from K, you know, last year to grade 1 this year, okay? And green shaded years are where the cohort increased from last year to this year. So 8 to the 12, so the 12 cohorts that could increase, okay, K to 1, all the way from 11 to 12, okay, from last year to this year. And 8 of those years, 8 of those cohorts, I should say, increased. Now, some of those increases were small, you know, 1 or 2, that sort of thing. But interesting enough is, like K had one of the bigger ones, 191 students last year, 203 this year. But also interesting enough, 10th to 11th, 8th to 9th, had the biggest increase in cohort from 215. That's right. Yeah, 204 students in 8th grade to 221 students last year, 221 students this year in 9th grade. And again, we lose students going to 9th grade. There may be some shifting of students, so some students choose to go other places, but other students choose to enter our schools. Okay, so that's interesting. I think that 8 of the 12 cohorts have increased from last year to this year. Is that making sense when I talk about cohorts? You got that? Right. Going next, and then an interesting piece, and we'll also look at this more in the next slide, is we also see declines in cohorts in the high school specifically. And here's a significant one that we haven't looked into yet, but we'll need to, is from 10th last year, we had 207 students, to 11th this year, 169 students, okay? That's a very surprising shift. And again, this is new data, so we'll look more into that. And that also begs the question, is that happening in other places in terms of our transition years? I'm going to show you a couple things here. This is kind of a colorful slide, but a little confusing. Again, we're looking at cohorts, district enrollment by grade, you know, from the years. There's this mantra or concern or narrative out there that we lose kids from elementary to O'Malley, or from O'Malley to the high school, okay? And you can see, while that's true to some degree, there are also pluses. We actually see 8th to 9th from year to year increases in enrollment almost every single year, except for really one over the past 10 years. So again, let me say it again, from 8th to 9th, we have an increase in enrollment every year, okay? And it varies from a few to, you know, upwards of 20. And this most recent year, from 8th to 9th, we had, from last year, this year we had an increase in 17. From 5th to 6th, we do see some small changes here. And you see the negative, -11, -18, -5 this past year, -1. So we do see some losing some enrollment from 5th to 6th. But what's interesting is if you look at a little bit bigger picture here, this is looking at enrollment from 6th through 8th. Okay, so before we're looking at transition years, 5th to 6th, or eighth to ninth. Now we're looking, within O'Malley or within GHS. So if you follow any of the colors, you see that, let me do this recently here, FY 2020, we had after FY 19, 204 kids started sixth grade. By the time eighth grade, we had 299, so 5 kids. That's not a very large number. Okay, it's quite a small number. In FY 2020, 218 and 205, it's a larger number. Let's sort of think about. But then recently, if you start in FY 21, so the kids who are now 10th, 9th graders, 206, 204, 204, very stable. And then the kids who are 8th graders now, they were 221 when they were in 6th grade, and now they're 217. So we see some stability, or I should say, similar numbers at O'Malley. They sort of stick. There's been question about 8th to 9th. I was just talking about that. Again, 8th to 9th is actually typically see increases, and this is the same data you saw in the previous slide in that 9th grade column. If you look purple to purple, green to green, red to red, you see increases from 8th to 9th. But then things happen differently at the high school, and this is where we need to continue to look at. We see decreases in enrollment from grade cohorts 9 to 10, and then 10 to 11. Okay, so again, if you start at 9, and I'm going back to 2014, 230 here, you can see that in FY 2014, but they're down to 214. Become more recently down to FY 21, 258 in 9th grade, 250 in 10th grade, 202, sorry, in 11th grade. So definitely showing that pattern holds pretty steadily. And most recently, the kids who are juniors right now, 196 to 207 to 169 is the large drop I talked about. But across any 3 years, you'll see that there's a decline in enrollment from 9th to 10th and 10th to 11th. Interestingly, enrollment typically stabilizes from 11th to 12th, and we have similar class sizes, similar grade sizes in 11th grade as we do in 12th grade. So for example, most recently in this year's senior class, we went from 202 to 208, so an increase, which is nice. 188 to 173, only 5 students, 193 to 190 in the mauve here, 150 to 159 in that red. So again, no conclusions right now, but it's interesting to look at that. It may have to do with our course failure rate, which is quite high in grade 9. Maybe that's impacting students. It could have to causing this, or what's the data show us yet. So
2 quick questions on the same topic.
Yep.
Do we track how many homeschooled kids we have that may enter the high school after being homeschooled the first 8 years of their life?
we probably know the numbers on those, but we're not tracking them regularly. I mean, we can get that information, but it's not something we're looking at regularly. We're good.
Now I forget what my second question was. Homeschool, and was another to with students. I'll have to come back to it.
Any other question?
Well, the percentage of dropouts, we know, does that impact like?
We definitely know-
9 through 12?
We definitely absolutely know about dropouts. Yeah, and then that's a piece of what's playing out here as well. To what degree? We just haven't looked at it
And the
close enough.
homeless, like maybe moving, students moving from district to district based on their status, and
Yeah,
stuff like
it
that.
could be, when you see a pattern like this, it's so consistent, year after year after year for like 10 years. There's some dynamic going on that we don't understand yet, but it's possible to point to, 1 or 2 or 3 of the same things happening again. But we'll have to look at that.
And my question that I now remembered is, during COVID, many students and families, got familiar with educating at home by Zoom. And I'm hearing about families that have signed up for the virtual schooling now, that you can get online that counts as attending class. So it's a homeschool with a, I think it's called Commonwealth, which is it's like a charter school online or something to that effect. Do we know how many students in our district attend something like that?
We do, and let's see, Mike, you should come up. Mike Muniz, the person who puts all this data together is Mike Muniz, who's here, and he can join us next year. But let me get back to that question, that's out of just a question, really, it's a virtual school.
Well, I'm just wondering if that happened from COVID.
Oh,
you know,
it
people got
increased?
familiar being home and then they learned about this new online
Yeah.
program that they don't have to come back to
So
the school system.
let me tell you, we just wait a couple minutes, and then I'll tell you when we'll get that, when we get that information to you, because it's the same time we'll get other information to you. Okay. And this engine dynamic, again, just looking into it, that's really sort of noticing it, I think, for the first time, at least, on a district level. And need to sort of investigate that more, with the high school team, hopefully going on. So, we'll go into a couple of, groups, so special education students. This is quite stable, actually, in terms of number of percent of students and therefore number of students. 701 education students. We'll go more into breaking this apart and understanding the different pieces of that when Katie Provo gives her special education update later in the year. This is, again, the enrollment, again, just the visual version of that same data I just showed you. Again, pretty steady. And here's English learners, so this is notable in terms of the increases. And just to make sure folks know, this is October to October changes. So when we see, if you go into the bottom two rows, 240 EL students last year, 294. That doesn't mean that 46 new students showed up on on August 28th. It's what really has happened is throughout last year and then into the beginning of this year, we've had more EL students come in. Okay. It's not like just folks and that goes with any group, any students, in and out all through the year. But what is notable is 46 students from last year as an increase is by far the highest increase we've had in a single year. That tracks really well with schools have been experiencing reporting. And then for the first time, we're about 10.3% learners in our district. And you can see that's the state is also increasing. There on the right-hand side. We're getting closer to the state averages. So that's just that graph is very different than any other graph we see tonight. All the graphs are pretty much steady. This one's very different. So it's notable, obviously. And that's why EL coffee hours, TL staff, more translators, but really making sure. I think one thing that I do a better job on, I think we can in general, is making better connections with the EL learner families in their communities. And that could be Brazilian Portuguese community, that could be the Guatemalan community, and others that are growing. Those two are probably our biggest groups. We definitely need to make better connections, with those communities to really learn from them and also be able to communicate with folks more effectively. That's a challenge that we experienced this summer. We didn't do it all that well, honestly, in communicating with our EL families related to enrollment, registration, and also transportation.
That's a question.
Yeah, sure.
So for any, say, particular student, individual student, do you have a sense, like an average sense of how long, say a student comes into our district, doesn't know English, maybe knows a little bit of English, how long does it usually take typically for that student to become proficient enough in English to no longer be part of this data?
What is that?
The state's benchmark is 6 years.
It takes 6 years? 6
The
years?
state's benchmark is 6-year average.
Yeah.
That would take them to be proficient.
That's what they expect us to do.
Yeah, some will be before, some will be a little after them. That's the benchmark where they want students to progress up.
That's all.
That's different though, in terms of how quickly they learn, so they can really function very, very well in English in school. And so I think the answer to, so there's, one is like a testing, getting to a level of proficiency that is, I don't know how we define it. I don't know words to define it in ways.
So the language proficiency, they rank it on a scale of 1 to 6. So the newcomer comes in at a 1,
Yeah.
typically, unless they speak English as well.
There's a way to determine the level.
Yeah, so there's screeners that students take, and it measures within 4 domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So a student can be higher in listening and speaking than in writing, because writing developmentally comes later for everybody, no matter what language is, right? So when a student becomes proficient, and I think it's 4.2 is what we consider where we might consider flipping a student, and there's other benchmarks too, but that's a basic. 4.9 around that area,
4.2.
4.2 or three,
Another
and
area.
is, yeah. For their overall, and then, you have a meeting in there possibly, it's called flectum. And so they go into another category where they don't necessarily receive EL services within the schools, but we monitor them for another 4 years after that to make sure that they don't regress in their language acquisition, and they'll still take the access test and once a year to measure their growth.
It's just, FLEP means formally limited English proficiency.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for that.
FLEP.
Too much jargon.
So we could get a student in middle school and maybe not have them get to, say, 12th grade at a proficient level.
So it depends on a lot of things, if a student, when the only time they hear English is when they're in school, and they don't hear it in their home or their world. They might develop slower than someone that is fully immersed, right? And then there's all different kinds of things that can play into it, so the average is 6 years, that's the goal, but it's certainly not hard and fast, really.
Oh, this question just popped into my head. So in that scenario, when students are here and they're beginner English learners, if they're taking MCAS, are they taking it in English or do they take it in their language?
So if it's their first year in the country.
Yeah.
They get a exempt for the ELA version, but they have to take math and science if it's a science year, which is really tough.
In
Yeah.
English.
In English, yes,
In English?
yes.
So English language learners have no choice but to take MCAS English.
That's a state requirement.
It's
At least on the math, would you say the math?
All of it, right?
All of it, but they do give a pass the first year within the country for an English language.
I get you.
so, what is the educational theory? Rationale behind something like math, for instance, which, there shouldn't be a language barrier when you're talking numbers, but if you're giving directions in English, you're giving word problems in English, that automatically provides an additional challenge.
Right, so for MCAS, students are given a word-to-word dictionary, which is like, it says agua and it says water. It doesn't tell you what water is, but it literally translated word for word. So they are able to use something like that. These are MCAS, right?
But in that timeline, they don't get extra time to use that dictionary or that.
MCAS is not
Not
timed
timed.
anymore. So.
Okay. So,
And there are EL accommodations that you can give students extra time, well, that's a small group. You can, there's a list of EL accommodations that are escaping me at this exact moment, but there are a list that you can give, kind of a principal discretion can give EL students. But it's not a translated accommodation.
right. Thank you.
It just baffles me that we embrace all of the different languages and things, and no one's advocating at the state level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For, it's one thing to test English, I guess, in English, right? Although you could test comprehension in your own language, right? It just seems they should be shifting to optional tests in their most familiar language to test that content. You're testing math, you're not testing if they can read English to do math. That's all I'm gonna say on this subject. If there's an opening, and we can advocate, we should do that.
Especially in the first 3 years that they're here, right? It's one thing if you came here in 10th grade and you're taking the MCAS that year, it's different than taking it when you've been here for 3 years, right? Because you'll have a better understanding of the English language. So to me, maybe I understand why they want to test you English, but it just seems they should give you time to get caught up based on the time you entered school system.
You know, it's a little, I mean, it's English is a hard language to learn, you know? And despite, there's the specific benchmarks and there's testing. And then there is, what our students are able to do on their own and with support from our staff in terms of learning language quickly and integrating, well into our classrooms in our community. And we can always do better on that, but the students do a remarkable job. I mean, they're really incredible. They make connection with the folks, that are learning a whole other language. Often when they're not spoken at home, but they work super hard and become good, strong parts of the community more quickly than I ever expected. Honestly, it's really impressive. They're very impressive. Absolutely.
And I don't think that number's going down, that 294, that's not going down.
No, I mean, it's our world is a much more diverse place. What I mean by that is, borders and travel and work and employment, they're our world become more multicultural, more diverse, and it's true that some humans have difficulty with that. Okay, it's difficult sometimes for humans to work with folks who are different from them. But at the same time, these are families and kids who are doing extraordinary things, coming from far away, and they're adding so much to our community. Immigrants have always added to this community, built this community in so many ways. That continues today. So really, really important part of the school. Just a few more. So what I want to do is switch over to. So that's the growth that we saw over time of our English learners. This is by school. So you see East Veterans, smaller school than GHS, but more English learners. And then you see quite smaller numbers at West Parish and Plum Cove. Plum Cove may increase in the next few years because of the attendance zone change we made, but we'll keep an eye on that. And then O'Malley there at 52 as well. And so I'm going to switch now to school choice. So this is the into and out of Gloucester schools, not within our elementary schools. These are students who either choose to come from Manchester or Rockport and to go to our schools, or those students who live in Gloucester and choose to go to schools outside of the district. So the most recent data we're showing is from last year. Okay, so because we don't get the report on school choice in the state until January. Okay. So we've been showing you all data from this October. This data is from last January. Okay, so when we do get the update from the state in February, we'll come back in January. We'll come back in February and show that to you. So let's just go through this. So this is school choice into Gloucester schools from other districts, and it's by school. So you see a dozen at GHS this year, or last school year, and then smaller numbers obviously in elementary school. And really you see school choice mostly in large part in the upper grades. School choice again, that's the same numbers but by grade here, and so you see just some fluctuations. It's at least very small numbers with just individual choices each year on choicing in. And then this is school choice out to other districts, and this is for the last 6, 7 years. Okay, so FY17 to now, and you can see some declines over the last few years. So 254 this year, 254 last year, sorry, 252 the year before. But that's from a high of in the 300 290s a few years ago. But this does not include Essex Tech. Again, so last year you see where students are choicing out to. Rockport isn't a surprise to anybody. It's been happening with our family. We've talked about this for a long time. But you see the other ones. There's the virtual one right there. Sorry, we have it there. So we have 18 students virtually, and then we'll report on that in February when we get the new numbers. And maybe at that point we'll show some more historical data in terms of by town. It might be helpful. But it might be if you have that. And here are the Essex Tech numbers. So basically 100 or so every year, about 25 kids go from enter Essex Tech each year from 8th to 9th grade. And we'll get the new numbers in January as well. So that's what we have for tonight. And you will, we'll put this out publicly.
Yeah.
We'll have it as, on, through Facebook, probably within the next few days. And then it also go out in terms of the next, installment of every day matter that we all share as well, so.
I think it's just good data for people to look at. It's easy to read, it's easy to understand.
Yeah.
So,
But we'll link this, we'll give them some headlines too.
yeah. Good stuff.
Right. And now the best part of the school committee meeting, we have the high school students, and we have a couple of groups of high school students today. We got. Yeah, I'll let you take that.
We have Bella Goulart and Abby Lovis, right?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Welcome.
Hi. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You wanna go first?
We kind of have a lot of
Yeah.
stuff today, so might take a minute. Friday is the Think Pink Day at GHS, and we take an annual picture at 1 p.m. Homecoming is this weekend, the crowning of the king and queen at halftime. There's also a Think Pink theme for senior night. On Thursday, sophomore class is doing a showing of Hocus Pocus at the movies. The boys golf update, they just finished as runner-ups in the Division II North Sectional. They go to the state championship next week. Their overall record was 10-6-1 for the season. The varsity soccer boys have a current record of 12-3-1 with 2 games left of the season before heading off to playoffs. And the varsity field hockey girls are 12-3-2 and only 1 final game before the playoffs. Thanksgiving baskets, they're $35 to feed an entire family Thanksgiving meal. We are at 36 baskets so far, and also starting the NHS food drive. The NHS tutoring is going very well. We have a lot of requests the past few weeks with the end of the semester coming. This week, a lot of NHS students will be volunteering for the mayor's Halloween party. November 6th is the homecoming semi-formal at the Black Swan. The king and queen will dance at the semi-formal too. Interact is doing a trivia night at November 8th. The junior class is doing a Minglewood night November 21st. Yearbook is doing a jalapeno night Monday the 27th, and seniors voted on superlatives this past week for the yearbook.
All right. And then for DECA, we have that Isla Black attended the DECA State Leadership Conference at Bentley University last Friday. She did workshops on finance, entrepreneurship, and team building at districts. And team building. And then at districts this January, she'll be competing in the finance operations research event. GHS students also last week visited the 8th graders at O'Malley to talk about their experience at GHS. The GHS students spoke for 80 minutes, and the 8th graders were amazing listeners and an attentive audience. And it was like good to hear from like the older kids to the younger kids so they could get a feeling of what they were coming like into. And then today there was a mental health ambassador assembly that the 11th and 12th graders heard. West was amazing, energetic, impactful, powerful, and graceful. He talks about mental health in his own story, and he was around the same age as all of us, so it was easy for us to relate to him. And then the GHS theater program has a play this fall, Little Woman, and it goes up next month. Performances are Thursday, November 16th at 7 p.m., Friday, November 17th at 7 p.m., and Saturday, November 18th at 1 p.m. and also 7 p.m. Tickets are now available on their website or at the door. And that's all we got for you today.
Great. Are you going to stay around for Harlem Wizard presentation? What we're going to learn about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
I'm gonna keep you guys on that top, so you can be seen. Extra 2 you share.
As you go.
Tonight we have super parent Rachel Rafalo here, and representatives of the 2026 class 2026, and they're gonna help all of you and the community learn about some fantastic, a fantastic event they're all putting on, so. There's some great parent leadership and student leadership, so you guys can take it from here, and then when you want, we have the video directly go. So please introduce yourselves.
So I'm Santana, I'm class treasurer. I'm Eliana, I'm just like a class rep for students. Do you want to say?
I'm Ethan up here.
Rachel Rapallo, parent of Ethan, who's here.
So we're here to talk about our basketball fundraiser, which is taking place November 19th at 2 o'clock in the field house. The Harlem Wizards are going to be coming and playing against Gloucester Public Schools teachers. We've gotten teachers from each school to incentivize students to come and watch their teachers basically get their butts kicked. So yes.
So then it's on Sunday, November 19th at 2 p.m. And so we have a ton of sponsorships, and there's gonna be a concession stand there, which will also support the class. And the money from the fundraiser will also go back to the PTO, not just like our grade.
Yeah, there's gonna be, so when you sign up for tickets online, there's gonna be a button you can press that asks which school you're from, and $3 will go to that school for your ticket. We've gotten about 3,000 in sponsorships. We have different levels of sponsorships. You can get a slam dunk, which gets you on the back of the t-shirts for all of the teachers to wear. Or you can just give a little bit of money and you'll be put on the sponsorship wall that we're gonna have, and we're also gonna call out all the sponsors at halftime. So yeah, and we've also got about 5,000 in ticket sales, so it's going very well so far.
All right.
Wow, tickets are still available?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so they start at $20 for students and $25 for adults, like general admission. Children 3 and under are free. And at the doors, prices will go up $5, but there's no guarantee that there will be tickets at the door.
And is there a link to get the tickets on?
It's through the Harlem Wizards website, so if you look them up on.
Oh,
And so the principal newsletter has been sending it out. It was in every matter that belongs. It's on Facebook as well.
Yeah, we
Send
just
out
got
to-
banners to be put up around the city.
Great, excellent, that's great. Yeah, so, and so these guys have been a big help in terms of getting materials, out and helping us communicate about it too. And this is another way of getting the word out. How are ticket sales doing in terms of, you're hoping to sell how many?
So 900 tickets. Technically, the field house can hold more than that, but that would put people like further outside of the main action, the main attraction. So 900 is about where we're at for a ticket, or what we would like to sell. And we do have, this is what you'll see as the main publicity that's around town, or will be around town, and some of the kids will visit some of the businesses to ask if they would like to put one up. We did get some banners made, as Eliana said, we'll have them, and spoken to a few people who will allowing us to hang them at their business, their place of business, or outside. And you can purchase them directly by going to the Harlem Wizards, or you can find them on all of our social media as well. And we're gonna have, there are representatives, I do have a list if anyone wanted to see it. Just so happens that Ms. Pasquarello happens to be on this list. She has said she will be playing, but all of the schools are represented, and we have a few SROs who are also playing, Pete Sutara and Brendan Chipperley. And we did get some great referees, Tim Philpott and Bob Gillis. Have agreed to referee, and it's definitely like, it's a basketball game, but it's entertainment, right? It's more about entertainment. It's more about like bringing the community together. We got a ton of the kids who are going to be working the event and a good amount of parents as well, but it'll mainly be the kids working.
Do you need volunteers or anything, or the kids gonna?
Sub in for me.
No. We have about, I think there's about 25 kids who signed up to work, 25 students. And I'd say about 15-ish parents. It does take a lot of people to work the event, not only at the door check-in, well, hopefully people can park themselves. You know, who knows about that, but so we'll be here, so at least there's a decent amount of parking, but there'll be people working the door. There's as she said, a concession stand doing 50-50, you have to check people in for tickets. There are people, you can buy a elevated ticket, which is like a courtside player ticket where you sit around the edge of the court, and like those people, you know, get the lanyards and they get brought to their seats. So it's going to be like ushers and stuff. And then they also do a souvenir table, which I guess they say it goes crazy. So we need like 8 people working the souvenir table. So a lot of people were doing that, and they do donate the Harlem Wizards. I think you get 40% of what you sell at the souvenir table.
Is there room on the roster for a superintendent?
Well, I may have already. Well, I told you I was getting you a t-shirt. So.
So I'm signed up, what you're saying.
I don't know if I signed you up. I didn't put you on the roster or anything, but I may have gotten you
If
a
there's
t-shirt.
room, I'll be out there supporting.
Representing.
Probably no time to get you in the printing material.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can count me in.
We may need some training.
No.
I was told no skills were needed.
Exactly. No skills required. That's how I hooked up. No skills required.
Professional lobster pot. How are they supposed to compete if they don't know what they're doing?
Right.
They better be practicing. You can't embarrass us all.
That's great. And should we show the video?
Sure.
I have a question though, before
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Your idea? Was it your idea?
It may have been my idea. Yes.
Excellent idea.
One of the big reasons that this is all happening is because Rachel's been amazing.
Yeah, she's said parent extraordinary.
I think like one of the big reasons when we were talking to the kids is like a lot of the kids, you know, can't afford when you're a senior to buy prom tickets or go to the senior banquet or stuff like that. So an event like this could like ensure that, you know, everyone could go or something like that. So.
Yeah. Y'all ready for showtime? Harlem Wizards, let's go. Y'all ready? Let's go. I need y'all to get real hype out there. Let's go. Come on.
What is it? A blizzard? What team is it? The Wizards.
Give it up for all the Wizards out there. Hey kids, it's the world famous Harlem Wizards inviting you to come see our live show of outrageous trick hoops and alley-oops. Who we playing against? Broadway. We're playing against the teachers. Oh, the teachers!
on. Oh my gosh, I'm just tired from like cheering and yelling stuff.
What a game! What a game! Unbelievable!
You don't want to miss it.
Here, now we're here.
Nine tickets. to that. That's not fair.
It'll be fine.
I can't take credit for the video. Another parent and her daughter, Jen Klabatowski, and her daughter Cassidy, who's a member, worked on the video. I don't have those types.
Any other questions for the crew?
Great event.
It's a great combination of parent leadership, of student leadership, students helping out, students, participating, leading, and then doing it for the community, for their college, for their classmates, obviously, class 1.6, but also for kids and families across the community. So just a really great example, folks.
And it should be on our
coming
school
together.
committee Facebook page.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. I'll put it on there.
And thanks for coming tonight and helping us understand what it's about. So
Thank you.
keep pushing the blanket tails, keep pushing. We'll get out as well. But any help you need, just let us know. Paul, you can let us know, or you guys can let us directly. So, but thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the computers.
No, if you really need, I'll just carry a letter.
Yeah, there you go. You got me.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Good night. Thanks for coming.
Don't want to have you taking it off.
Oh, good night, girls.
We'll see you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Bye.
Of course, thank
Excellent.
Next is the subcommittee report from the Building and Finance Subcommittee meeting on October 10th, 2023.
Thank you. So we met on the 18th. We began with transfers, budget transfers. We've had several transfers that were on our consent agenda tonight. One transfer was to pay for transitioning the chips on the playgrounds to the rubber material. And the other transfers were taking money out of an account and then going towards special education out of district tuition or just the transportation department directly with special ed. So that led into our conversation, our standing conversation about out of district special ed tuition and transportation. We are blessed with a new student since our last report that came in a cost of approximately $67,000. That's just for the tuition and does include the transportation, which I believe was about another $44,000. So as you know, we've been watching this account and it's very flexible. The past 2 months in this school year, the cost has gone from 4.4 million, which we budgeted for, and we're up to 4.7 million. That could increase, or next month it may decrease, depending on if students come in, or if they move out, or if their need changes. Because we are looking at our budget, expanding that department right now, we had Katie Provost, our director, come in and talk to us about different scenarios with different students and the cost of their education and transportation, which led into a conversation about our options if we go over budget to the point where we may need more money in that account and what our options are to do that. And there was 3 different options, which were yeah, I'm just trying to find the exact language.
The word is kind of an odd word.
Hold on. I thought I had it in here, but I'm jumping all over the place. So one option is to transfer money out of our contingency funds. Another option would be that we can go to the city and ask for additional funds if we need that. And then another option that we have that we have not used in the past, to my knowledge, is called the Special Education Extraordinary Relief, which is when the district spends 125% more of the projected balance, we can go to the state and ask for some relief. But it's not as cut and dry as we may think it is, just getting to a certain threshold. As far as a number that is spent, there's a certain percentage of each student's cost that has to increase. In other words, I think we have to spend
So this is
approximately
like the
50
circuit breaker. And then students that fall even higher.
Higher.
Right.
Yeah. In other words, say right now, we're approximately $200,000 short, and just using this for an example,
Right.
that doesn't mean we just spend another $200,000 on the cost of education. It means that each student, we have to spend a certain percentage,
Right.
and whatever that amount that goes over goes towards that 200,000.
Right.
So it's not as simple as it sounds, but it's there and available as an option if our numbers continue to climb.
And the state has the funding available for those things.
So you put into a pot,
Yeah, it depends on how many districts,
not a
apply,
guarantee.
and then they may prorate it based upon their budget.
So we're not there yet. But as you know, we talk about this every meeting that we have at Building and Finance. And we'll just keep a watchful eye on it and report out as needed. We talked about the budget calendar. Believe it or not, it's time to start the next school year budget. There was a couple dates that we need to change in November and December. So what we decided was to have the meetings the Monday before that originally scheduled Wednesday. I believe one of them was the Sawyer Medals Awards night. I know sometimes we tried to cram in a meeting before that, but that's not always the best way to do business. So we'll have it on that Monday, again in December. And the June 19th meeting, we put that off for another discussion when we have a different school committee down the road. And the budget calendar, we set that as well, which I believe is in your packet. So that'll be starting in November. Where the superintendent does some
So
back.
Gary and I work in
homework before it comes
November,
to us.
December, with
Yeah.
our district leaders, district school leaders, and then come to you, same schedule, same
January.
process as last time. In January, we start with the priority presentations, then go to the budget presentations, and then go.
Yep. Is there any questions? It was a pretty quick meeting. But good to hear Katie Provost and have her perspective here, so that if we had any questions about the funding and how all that works, it's very helpful.
Well, I remember it was either last year or the year before, we went through kind of the tuition for the consortium different programs too. And I think those kinds of things every so often are just helpful to understand what programs are offered.
The one thing we talked about was Melissa alluded to this, but we look at different, there's the ins and outs of, different sample students and how some things can increase costs, some things can decrease costs. And that those happen actually throughout the year. But what we'll do is during the budget process, we'll share the same presentation with the whole committee. Because it really does, I think, will help you and the public understand how, why there's so many changes in any given year, from year to year, but also within a year. And that's why we have contingency, and that's why it's also hard to project accurately. But that's I think we thought that would something that was helpful.
And we had the yearly conversation, I say yearly because it seems like we've had it so often over the past years about how our school district maybe can increase services based on the needs to try to keep some students here as opposed to moving out of district and possibly combine with surrounding communities that students may need those same services to see if that is an option for us. So it's ongoing conversation always with our awesome, and I say really awesome special education department. They really serve our students well, and the staff is just incredible. So we're very fortunate, I think, in the Gloucester Public Schools to have the staff and the commitment that we have, because you don't hear that in our schools. So kudos.
Okay,
That's my report.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next item of business is action, and we have 9 grants to.
We're gonna pull a couple of those. Yeah.
Yeah, the two, SEL, mental health, 332 and 613.
So numbers 1 and numbers 2 on your agenda.
Yeah, we're pulling those,
Yeah.
for now. But we're just reading them at this point, we just,
You're gonna make motions to approve them.
not gonna do this, do them one by one.
One by one.
So the verbiage is, motion to approve. Grant number 3 from the McKinney Vento homeless grant for $25,000.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Make a motion to accept grant number 4, O'Malley Awesome Gloucester grant for $1,000.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Motion to approve grant number 5, preschool Magnolia Lions Club grant for $500.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Motion to accept grant number 6, Gloucester Education Foundation Plum Cove Theater Program grant for $2,500.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Motion to approve grant number 7, Gloucester Education Foundation Digital Literacy Course for CVTE students for $8,000.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Motion to approve grant number 8, Gloucester Education Foundation Wilson internship for $4,819.50.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
And motion to approve grant number 9, Gloucester Education Foundation stipend for O'Malley Science Center resident scientist for $2,000.
Okay, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yep.
Excellent. Next item under action is discuss the start time for school committee meetings. And I know the history is that we used to meet at 7. Even through COVID, I believe we maybe tried to move it earlier. And then there was discussion to move it earlier to 6 as our regular time, so that we would finish earlier, because our meetings were really long. So you had brought this forward, and I know you have a work situation where you're now out of town, and it just makes it really difficult for you to get life and this jammed into a certain amount of time.
So, yeah, so I'm gonna be a little stingy and say that this is a little bit about me, but not just about me. I mean, now that I am commuting temporarily for the next year and a half, I realized the value of time and realized how much time I'm on the road. But it just made me think more so about families, that when they get home and what time they walk in the door, because believe it or not, people still go to work until 5 o'clock in the afternoon and work a full day, and getting home and settled in, for those that may not necessarily come to our meetings anymore because we have Zoom available. By the time dinner is done and kids are settled down for our families, I just think 6:30, if not 7 o'clock, but I would be happy with 6:30, is a better start time for convenience to the public, as well as convenience to other school committee members too that participate in either volunteering or other activities late afternoon. I mean, I understand that we want to start as early as possible because our meetings are long, because we do get a lot of information in our meetings, which is extraordinary. But I just think 6 o'clock is a tough start time, and I think it should be 6:30, regardless if we have executive session or not.
Discussion?
I'm willing to support 6:30. I think it's reasonable. I mean, sometimes 6 is a little tricky for me to get to, but 6:30 is totally fine. I think 7 with as much stuff as we take in is probably a little late for me, but I think 6:30 is a reasonable compromise.
I would just point out the city council is changing back to 6:30 as well too, so kind of be consistent with other meetings in the city. I know my licensing board meetings start at 6:30, And other board members board meetings start at 6:30, so that kind of seems like a consistent start time.
Yeah.
With city meetings.
I am a little concerned, like, on the executive session, the last couple times we've gone late, we've done it at the end, which I'm totally fine with as well, but I don't know how other people feel about the executive session.
I would just like us to leave open the, not flexibility as much as if we, in planning an agenda, feel that it is a really, full agenda.
Yeah.
We, kind of try to talk about it. And if there is an executive session, how that works, so, so we'll try to work on balancing the content, which we always do, so that our meetings just don't continue with that, you know, because, right.
No,
It's any staff that attends also is already had long days, so we'll try and manage it so that minimize those late nights.
Yeah.
If there is a scenario where an executive session is required, could we move that, say, like a half an hour early, if there's like an exception, like if you're looking at an agenda and thinking.
Start at 6.
Right, I mean, on rare occasions where you say that it's kind of overloaded.
I do think that's what we started doing, right? We
Yeah.
had executive session, we began our meeting early,
Yeah.
so that our meeting's time started, so. So I guess I would ask that the committee has flexibility with that as well, so that we are not. You know, we can do it case by case.
Right, and I understand the flexibility, and I'm more than happy to be flexible. I would just hope that the plan is to start at 6:30 unless the agenda is overwhelming and we need 6 o'clock, not just an automatic.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if we do that, executive session would be first, knowing the public wouldn't attend our meetings until 6:30.
Yeah.
To be consistent. So I'd like to make a motion so that it's on table, make a motion that, starting in November, we, change the start time of our school committee meetings from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., subject to changes with the need for executive session.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Awesome, thank you.
That's Maria. You good with that?
With me.
Okay. You're one of us too. All right, we are now going into executive session. And we have a few reasons we're going into executive session. First, to enter executive session pursuant to executive session purpose 3 of MGL 39. Section 23B, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Gloucester Association of Educational Support Paraprofessionals and Gloucester Teachers Association. And B, to enter executive session pursuant to executive session purpose 3 of MGL 39, section 23B, to discuss strategy with respect to.
Okay.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Prince? Yes. Jefferson Clancy?
Yes.
Mr. Melvin?
Yes.
And Mr. Minio?
Yep.
Okay, so anybody that has attended this evening, thank you so much. And we will not be going back into open session. We are going to just come into open session to adjourn.